Good Sunday morning, everybody. We are kicking off this morning, tracking a mess across the area. Thankfully, we were talking about it for a few days now, but it doesn't necessarily mean, right, that when it comes, we're any less maybe just prepared for how raw and gloomy kind of a day we have. I'm going to give it a little bit of time for folks to kind of get on and start to ask some questions, things like that. I know my favorite digital person, Anders, in the background. Don't tell anybody else, Anders. I will keep an eye on your questions, things like that. I'm just kind of getting a good idea across the area right now of what we're seeing in a few spots. We have had some reports of some sleet, some freezing rain mixing in parts here of Caldwell County. Of course, we're expecting that too up toward the mountains as well. Areas to our north, some sleet and snow accumulation on elevated surfaces in places like Greensboro, North Carolina. Very interesting start to our morning. So let's kind of get right to it. Of course, you can ask your questions throughout the morning. I'm keeping a close eye on storm reports this morning to kind of see what we're getting reports of. But just remember, folks, a lot of the reports that we get in that we, kind of reiterate to you are from folks just like yourselves. So real time on the ground, people seeing the sleet, the snow, a little bit of freezing rain as well. Also, if anyone was wondering why we're doing this stream at 8:13 instead of 10 o'clock, is that we're kind of in the thick of this morning's precipitation. So I figured better to do it before it kind of arrives versus afterwards. And you guys think, Brittany, why didn't you give us a heads up? So all good things this morning. Okay, so let's take a look at the Sugar Mountain camera. You can very clearly see all of the ice that is accumulated on that camera this morning. It is a widespread kind of start to the day. Officially, we do have a winter weather advisory in effect for Ashe and Watauga County, as well as the mountains of Burke and Caldwell County. This was expanded last night at about 11 a.m. or 11 p.m. that is, and then over toward Pineola, Avery County, we do have an ice storm warning in effect. Now, how does that impact you? Well, I'll tell you. So, at the highest elevations of Ashe and Watauga County, there's still the chance that we could see some accumulations of snow and sleet up to about 3 inches. Now, the freezing rain accumulations have gone up a little bit higher based on what we told you yesterday, especially at those highest elevations, up to about 3/10 of an inch a possibility. And that was one of the reasons why Avery County was bumped to that ice storm warning. Snow and sleet accumulations for lower elevations in Avery, Burke, and Caldwell County, especially in the mountains, closer to about an inch. Now, with these winter-like conditions, plus the gusty winds at about 35, 40 miles an hour this morning, there is a chance that we could see some localized and sporadic power outages. Haven't seen a lot of reports of that just yet, but it is something that our team is monitoring closely, again, especially for this morning. So now let's take kind of a wide view of what's happening actively right now. Now, I want to make it very clear to folks that the majority of our wintry mix is for areas north of I-40. Now, some of that mix will hug kind of that line, but the majority of those reports will likely be for areas north. However, our temperatures are cold enough that if you're in places like Hickory, Shelby, Lincoln, Gastonia, over toward Concord, Albemarle, Statesville, there is definitely the chance that some of those kind of light little icy pieces of sleet can kind of mix in with the cold rain. It likely won't be sleet straight up. You likely won't see any kind of accumulation right on elevated surfaces, but there is the chance that some of that could mix in. So if you kind of catch some of that rain on maybe your car, don't be surprised by it. It can happen even when our temperature is in the upper 30s. So here's a wide view again of satellite and radar. We're going to zoom into kind of what's happening for those mountain areas. You can almost see straight up wintry mix for, again, Ashe, Watauga, Avery counties, Linville areas north there in Burke County. And Lenore, you've kind of been that dividing line so far this morning for that wintry mix and that cold rain. Definitely, as some of that wintry mix continues this morning, you could still see some of that, again, sleet mixing into with some of that light rain. Now, for the rest of the area south of I-40, so far this morning, I've not had any official reports, again, of some of those tiny little pieces of ice mixing in with the rain. So we're kind of at a cold rain standstill right now. Again, Statesville, Hickory, all of Catawba County, and into southern Iredell County, Mecklenburg County, you are covered with light rain. The same for Lincoln County. But you'll notice as I travel a little bit further south, we are starting to see again heavier rain picking up on the west side of the area. In terms of pockets of moderate to heavy rain, this is likely the heaviest we'll see all day. So Gastonia, you're getting walloped with some pockets of more moderate to heavy rainfall right now into York County as well as Cleveland County. This is working its way eastward and will eventually work its way into Mecklenburg County within the next hour or so. But for Meck County and east right now, we're still seeing again some of that light rain. Now, as we take a wider view, you can kind of see again where the heaviest rain is setting up right now. It is moving into our area at this hour. So once we kind of get this bulk of heavy rain move through, we will still be tracking, of course, moisture, but it is not going to be nearly as heavy or nearly as widespread. And you can kind of see that on Futurecast as we progress into time. Here we are at lunchtime, still seeing an abundant amount of shower activity. This will likely start to wrap up, I would say, around 2 o'clock. I said that yesterday, and I kind of still hold true to that. 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock will kind of be the transitionary period of more widespread showers to kind of a more scattered pattern. And then by the second half of the afternoon, we're really just talking about a light rain, a drizzle factor from pretty much, I would say, 5 p.m. and beyond. You'll kind of see this working its way out of our area slowly but surely as we progress throughout your Sunday. So again, the heaviest rain by a landslide is going to be this morning, and then we'll taper this off by the second half here of the day. Tomorrow morning, not tracking any kind of moisture, but we are going to be watching out for some dense fog across some parts of the area. But today, I think we sometimes can overshadow the effect of when it's cloudy, drizzly, and kind of gloomy. What I mean by that is I can tell you it is going to be cold and chilly and raw, but until you feel it yourself, oftentimes people are kind of like, oh, we'll be fine. Highs in the upper 40s, lower 50s. Similar for the first Charlotte FC match, if you all remember. It was 51 at kickoff, and it was chilly. I mean, I was tailgating with some friends. I didn't actually go to the match, and I felt like I needed some kind of hand warmer or gloves on my hands. And that's not necessarily because it was freezing. It was because of just the feeling that you get when it's a little bit breezy. And of course, you have the cloudy and chilly temperatures. Oftentimes, it's just kind of how the wind and the temperature and the cold rain kind of mixes and makes it feel on your skin. Now, that was a temperature in the lower 50s. You want to subtract almost 10 degrees, and that's kind of what we're dealing with this morning or into the afternoon too. So it will be even chillier than what we had with that first match just a few weeks ago. So temperatures will stop into the lower to middle 40s today across the Piedmont. It will be gross, it will be cold, it will be chilly, it will be raw, and of course those temperatures only reaching the mid 30s there for parts of the mountains. Now today is going to be the worst day by a landslide this week, but not necessarily the coldest temperature that we're going to feel. As we progress throughout tomorrow, we're going to notice again that patchy fog in the morning, but then a weak cold front moves in, and this cold front will bring us a chill after it moves through, but it's going to be largely moisture starved. So I'm not really expecting rain throughout your Monday, although we are going to see clouds in the morning with clearing by the afternoon. This is going to plummet our temperatures and bring us some of the coldest air we've seen likely in about a month, since about the middle part of February. Tuesday morning, 31. Wednesday morning in the upper 20s. Thursday, we're kind of hovering right around the freezing mark. So this will be 3 mornings in a row that we will want to be on plant watch here in the Charlotte area. Now, this is something kind of meteorologists, right? Keep a closer eye on. Folks at home are probably like, what the heck, Brittany, are you talking about? But here in the Charlotte area, because we oftentimes do see a freeze or a hard freeze during winter, there's a certain point in typically late November, early December, that the National Weather Service will stop issuing frost advisories and freeze warning unless we are seeing substantial cold, like what we had around Christmas. This is because they'd essentially be issuing them every single day. And this is normally around the time that it becomes more typical that we're seeing these temperatures and around the time the growing season ends, right? Because oftentimes the reason why we're issuing frost warnings and freeze or frost advisories and freeze warnings are because of the plants. Then they start reissuing them around springtime when the growing season begins and we see those late season freezes because again they're a little more rare, a little more atypical. Usually for the Piedmont that is April 1st. They have started the growing season of unofficially early because of how warm our winter was. So the National Weather Service sent out an alert to our local meteorologists that they are going to start issuing frost and freeze advisories if we see that impact. So essentially the growing season starting almost a whole month early, again, because it's early March and that typically doesn't happen until early April. So we will be again on plant watch Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday mornings, but it is very likely that one of these mornings at least we will see a frost advisory or a freeze warning right here in the Charlotte area. So I've talked about this a lot on social media a little bit, just kind of chit chatting throughout the show. But, we like sometimes to have a warm winter because it kind of breaks up the cold. But there's also some negative impacts. When we see an early growing season, of course, crops, um, start growing early, plants start growing early, even at your house. People who are just master gardeners and really are passionate about their, gardens, you see those blooms early, which is why the growing season has unofficially started early from the National Weather Service. But then what happens is you get a late season freeze, and oftentimes these crops, these plants can die off because of those freezing conditions. And then people are left, sad, but sometimes it can impact folks' livelihood, especially in the agriculture realm that we have here in the Carolinas. So kind of just a good reminder that you need the cold, right, to balance out the warm. And it's not necessarily always a good thing to have such a warm winter. But that's a different story, right, for a different day. Today, let's kind of summarize, right? We are tracking areas of cold rain, a chilly day here in the Charlotte area, monitoring that wintry mix up toward the mountains and the foothills, mainly north of I-40. Tomorrow morning, we'll start off with patchy morning fog, partly sunny in the afternoon with a high near 60. Then the front pulls all the way through. We turn breezy for Tuesday morning. High temperatures will reach the mid to upper 50s, which isn't necessarily cold. It is cooler than normal for this time of year, but it's the morning low temperatures. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday mornings, we will be on freeze watch, frost watch. Make sure you are covering up those plants or bringing them closer to your home if you can. Always a good reminder not to use plastic. You want to use some kind of blanket, things like that, that'll keep them nice and warm. And then we will be tracking some slight warm up heading into St. Patrick's Day. I'm going to wrap up this live stream because I'm actually about to go live on WCNC Charlotte during the Today Show to do our 8:26 cut-in. So I will be doing that. Hope to see you there. And if not, I'll see you on Wake Up Charlotte weekend starting at 9 a.m. Today is actually the first show with my new co-anchor on Sundays, Kaylin Hagwood. She is a local to Lancaster. She is wonderful. So hopefully you all tune in and join us at 9 o'clock. Have a great rest of your day if not, and stay safe if you're traveling up toward the mountains and foothills.